10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, my friends. Hello. I just wanted to check in with everyone today. How is everybody? We've done 2 live streams together on the Jennifer CRUMBLEY case, and today there was a verdict. I know that so many of you were watching it live. I was watching it live too, but I was in the car because I was on mommy duty today. Today I was a mom. And this trial was about a mom. And, I've been very conflicted about this case. And I thought this verdict was going to take a lot longer than it did. So when the verdict came back, what was it, around a little after 1 p.m. Eastern today? I knew that they were going to have lunch because for some reason jurors always like to get the lunch. They always like to get their free lunch. So nothing much happens until after lunch. And I was watching Recovery Addict. And he decided to break for lunch. And we wasn't going to break for lunch, but he decided to break for lunch. And of course, right when he broke for lunch, the jury came back about 10 or 15 minutes later. That's not so late for me. Oh, Tara. It is 11:20 in New York, Eastern time. I'm a night owl anyway. It's really the only time I get to myself is late at night, so I enjoy spending my evenings with you. And for you guys on the West Coast, it's only 8:20, right? So, it's not so late for me. I'm here anyway, so I'd rather be talking to you than watching other people on YouTube, which is what I usually do if I'm not watching anything on television. Hi, Trip Show. What would you like? Can me discussion, please? I don't know what that means. I'm just waiting for some people to come in, Trip Show. It is quite the Trip Show. People are distraught. It's early Easter West. Oh, Ed, you're going to stay up with me? I was about to go to sleep, but I much prefer late. Melanie. Well, it took me a little while to get ready, but here I am. And it's a landmark day, my friends. Today is a landmark day because this is the first time in U.S. history that a parent of a school shooter has been held criminally responsible for the actions of her child. And I've been very conflicted about this case because not only do I come to you with 30 years experience as a New York State trial lawyer in state and federal courts, so I am very familiar with the law. I'm very familiar with these theories of liability. I'm very familiar with the Constitution, with procedure, with precedent. And this is unprecedented. It's unprecedented. It's the first time ever that parents of a school shooter, I parent because it's just the mom now, Jennifer CRUMBLEY, was tried first. The dad, James, will be tried in March. Ethan, who is 15 years old at the time of this horrific massacre, was 15 years old, pleaded guilty, and after a Miller hearing, he was sentenced as an adult to life in prison without parole plus 24 years. And now his mother, Jennifer CRUMBLEY, has been found guilty by a jury of her peers in Michigan of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, each of which carries a penalty of up to 15 years in prison. She has also been held in jail for 2 years since her arrest in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day for over 2 years. And she will now go back there. And after her sentencing, she will be sent to a prison. I said this the other night. I live in New York. We don't even have bail here, hardly. Everyone gets out on no bail, mostly, sometimes bail. But certainly Jennifer Crumbley didn't pull the trigger. She's not a violent felon. The fact that she was held for 2 years in solitary confinement frightens me to the core. And that's sad. No, I disagree. I don't think the ineffective counsel, I don't think that's going to work. Not going to work. Her attorney is a very well-known, highly paid, very experienced attorney. She represented Larry Nassar, who was that horrific doctor for the USA Olympic team and others who abused hundreds of young girls who were gymnasts. And what I found most upsetting maybe about this trial is that it really wasn't about the evidence, because I don't think the prosecution proved their case. Its case, rather. I don't think the prosecution proved its case. The prosecution proved basically that Jennifer Crumbley was a bad mother, that they tried to show, at least, and maybe this is what the jury thought, that because Ethan was an unplanned pregnancy or an oopsie baby, that maybe she didn't love him. Maybe she didn't pay enough attention to him. Maybe she should have given him a hug in the police station that day after he was arrested, or after he was brought down there after the horrific shootings that he pulled the trigger on. This evil, evil child, but can we call him a child? Because he was sentenced as a man, so she was having an affair too, so that was probably very distracting, and that meant that she probably didn't pay enough attention to her son either. And even though it's not illegal in Michigan to give your kid a gun, I mean, they can't register it in their own name, but they're allowed to carry it around, they're allowed to take it to the range, they're allowed to shoot it. She should have given him a hug. She should have treated him nicer and not let him know that he was an unplanned pregnancy and she had an affair. She didn't read his journal, so all those journal entries that came in about how he was asking his parents for help wasn't really evidence to prove the truth of the matter asserted, that he really did ask his parents for help and they laughed at him. I think a lot of people held against her that she also let him play with a Ouija board. We had a poll in the chat the other night about that. So maybe she was a bad mother, maybe she was a bad wife. But does it make her guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter that hold up to 15 years in prison each? Should she have been held in prison for 2 years, in jail for 2 years under solitary confinement for 23 hours a day? Or should she have been under house arrest with an ankle monitor, like so many of the violent criminals that we see in other states who are let out, because they have more money, I guess? Should we hold it against her because she was working 2 jobs, trying to provide for her family, that maybe she didn't take as seriously as maybe she should have his drawings of a gun? And the thoughts won't stop the same day as the incident? She said the bullets were hidden because she testified to that. That when her husband called, he said, "Where did you hide the bullets?" And she told him, and he said, "The bullets are missing and the gun is missing." And where do we go with this? If your kid wants a toolbox for Christmas, I'm just going to use it's not really a great example, but if your kid wants a toolbox for Christmas and he's 15 and he takes the screwdriver that's in the toolbox and he decides to break into a neighbor's house and steal some jewelry and a television and, a very expensive painting, and whatever he steals is worth a dollar amount enough to make it a felony. Can you also be charged with a felony because you gave him the screwdriver? Or what if you have a son who's 17, let's say, and he's got a girlfriend who's 15, and they have relations, let's say, in Michigan, and her parents find out, and she now accuses him of SA or R, those words that we're not allowed to say on YouTube. Can the parents now be held responsible for what their son did because he's under 18 and because maybe he was looking at indecent materials on the internet and they should have known what his Google search history was, and therefore they should have known that he would do something like this, that it would be foreseeable that he would go out there and have relations with his girlfriend? I don't know. I don't know how far this goes. Yeah, and Marie says she's been found guilty. I believe it was a correct verdict. Gun ownership comes with responsibility. Don't like being responsible. Don't own a gun. Agree with you. I agree with you, Marie. I agree with you 100%. If I owned a gun, which I don't, and I had kids in my house, I would keep it in a gun safe. I would keep it locked up. I would keep the ammunition in a separate place. And here's the thing. Michigan didn't have a law that you had to lock up your gun. There was no law. She was in violation of no gun laws. This was a case of gross negligence. But again, there was no evidence that that gun was not locked up. She said it was locked. She said the bullets were hidden in a different place. Ethan, the shooter, did not testify. Anything that he wrote in his journal is hearsay, and I would submit to you that based on the fact that this kid is an absolute psychopath, you could not trust one word that he said. So anything he wrote in his journal could absolutely be a lie. Just because he wrote in his journal, I asked my parents for help and they laughed at me, does not make it true. It doesn't mean it really happened. Just because he texted that to his friend doesn't mean it really happened. This was a case that, in my opinion, was decided based on emotion, based on the jury's feelings about Jennifer CRUMBLEY. And this is scary. It's scary because you know what? In Michigan, tomorrow's Wednesday in Michigan at Oxford High School, and it's late start Wednesday tomorrow. Is it hunting season? I don't know. But if it was hunting season, tomorrow would be late start Wednesday. And it's late start Wednesday because kids go hunting before school. So therefore, every single, oh, it is, sis. It is, sis. Thanks, sis. It's hunting season. So tomorrow's late start Wednesday. So every parent who gives their kid a gun tomorrow to go hunting before school better be sure that their kid is not going to go out and shoot a person. Right? So this kid was horribly neglected. Okay. American Nana, this boy was horribly neglected his whole life. It was something she should have known. It wasn't just him being a jerk, but I agree it was based on emotion. And I'm not arguing with you, American Nana. I think a lot of people feel the same way. When you say horribly neglected, I've handled cases and we've talked about cases where children are horribly neglected, like in the Ruby Frankie case. Not only were those children horribly neglected, they were, shackled, beaten, abused to the nth degree. When you say he was horribly neglected, where are we going to draw that line? And I'm not arguing he was fed, he was clothed, he wasn't abused. The flip side of this entire case was based on her failure to act, okay? Her failure to act, her failure to recognize the signs of this psychopathy that he kept very well hidden from everyone, including the school professionals who did not think that he was a danger to others because they kept him in school that day. And in fact, I think in the end, it was Ethan's decision to stay in school that day. Didn't they give Ethan the choice whether to stay in school that day? I don't know if I saw that in the Miller hearing or if I saw that somewhere else, but Her failure to act, her failure to see that her son was a psychopath, based on what evidence, I'm not sure, other than a journal that she never read and some text messages that he sent to a friend, some video that he took of his abusing these baby birds, which I don't even think that came into this case. I think that was the Miller hearing. Her failure to recognize that, her failure, I guess, to search the backpack that day in school when the dean had his hands on it, and they absolutely 100% had reasonable cause to search that backpack. And anybody that wants to come for me in the comments, come for me. I have merch that says it. Come for me in the comments. It's going to focus. There we go. They absolutely had reasonable cause to search that backpack that day. The dean had his hands on it. He made a joke to the teacher that handed him the backpack, said, "Wow, this is heavy. You're strong." People say, well, she should have told them that he had access to a gun. And I submit to you, based on Late Start Wednesdays, that school should assume that every single child in the building has access to a gun, because they have to remind the kids during hunting season, don't bring your weapons to school. Don't bring your guns to school. He was giving them clear warnings and they didn't act on it. Says Mark Loves Angels. What clear warnings? What were the clear warnings? Honestly. Anything that was not hearsay. He had never been in trouble in school before. He had no prior history of any troubles in school. Julio says the prosecution said if you have a child who allegedly has mental health issues, you should be with them 24/7. That's not realistic and people would lose their jobs. This was a test case, my friends. This was a test case because maybe some of the politicians in Michigan have some higher aspirations. Perhaps. I don't know. Just a thought. Maybe they saw that how the parents behaved after the fact and thought that they would be good targets for this test case. That is overblown, Susan says, that the school majority kids hunt. And I guess that means Late Start Wednesday is not because of hunting. That's what the evidence in the trial said. That's exactly what the dean testified to. If you go back to my first stream on this case, we played his testimony. That's exactly what he said. In fact, somebody was in my comments saying that she lives in that school district, and it absolutely is a thing, and it's always been a thing. So it absolutely is. I'm going by what the dean testified. I'm not just making that up. Boogeyman, dead birds, alcohol, asking for help, and told to suck it up or got laughed at. I don't know where's the testimony that he did ask for help? He wrote it in his journal that he asked for help. The mother said he didn't. And we're talking about the mom now, not the dad. The dad bought the gun. The gun was registered in the dad's name. Was it foreseeable that he would shoot up a school? Based on what you're saying. I don't know that she ever saw a dead bird. I don't know that any of that came in to this trial, did it? Boogeyman, I'm assuming you watched the Miller hearing. A lot of that testimony, a lot of that evidence did not come in. Laughing Coyote 111, if they had charged the parents with child neglect, I think I would have been on with that, but manslaughter, I don't see how you get there. Yeah, I think some lesser charges may have been easier for me to swallow and to get to. And I agree with you. Shelves, a morning announcement of don't forget, leave your guns at home is insane. Campuses have to have a zero tolerance policy. American Nana says it is absolutely what the dean said. Great Dane mom, I can't even with this verdict. Thank God my kiddo is 32. And Lala Me. EC's case, he was found to be competent, no mental health concerns. Yes, that's right. He has been examined and they say there is nothing wrong with him. And I don't know how that could be true because he's clearly a psychopath. If you watch the Miller hearing, you cannot unwatch it. You cannot unsee what was in that journal. Maui Swift, I just don't know how they could foresee such a horrific act. That's where I have the problem. Could it have been perhaps foreseeable that he may hurt himself? Maybe. And that's what the school was afraid of, and that's why they kept him in school that day, because they thought they didn't want him to be home alone. They thought maybe he was a danger to himself, and if they did think he was a danger to himself, why didn't they just call 911? Why didn't they tell the authorities that they thought he was a danger to himself? Maybe he would have been put on a 5150 hold, as we would call it here in New York, or a 72-hour hold, or a Section 12, I think they call it in Massachusetts. Why wouldn't they do that? Jay Lord says Karen McDonald, that's the prosecuting attorney, correct, with the blonde hair, stepped down from being a judge to be a prosecutor weeks before she had gun legislation drawn up before the shooting. Yep. And I believe since these charges were brought, haven't they changed the law in Michigan that you have to have the gun locked up if there's kids in the house? And I agree with that. I agree that you should, 100%. She testified that gun was locked, the husband was responsible for it, and she hid the ammunition in another place. So he's 15. And we looked at the jury instructions during the last stream, which I think was last night. I'm losing track of the days here, guys. And the jury instructions were very specific that she had to have known that she could control her son. Could she control him? I don't know. I don't know. Aaron Hack, News Nation shows the front camera view during the verdict. Just look at Karen's smirk when she hears guilty. That's not relief for the victims. He said his dad told him to suck it up. Sounds like something a lot of dads say to their teenage sons. I hate to say that to you, but if that's what his dad told him one time, tell me, guys, is that unusual? That might be something that a dad would say? Does that make her guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter? Ariel, no, absolutely not foreseeable. Lynn says yes. In my opinion, it was foreseeable, but foreseeable specifically that he would commit a school shooting. Specifically. I don't think any parent would ever foresee that. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I don't think any parent in their wildest imagination would think, I think my kid's going to be capable of that. I think he could do that. And then on the flip side of this, how many of you watched the Boy in the Box trial, the Timothy Ferreter case? That father, didn't he claim that he thought his son was dangerous and he needed to keep him away from people? And so he kept him in that little room in his garage. And he was convicted. And I think he was only sentenced, the father, to something like 5 years in prison. And he horrifically abused that kid. So, there's the flip side of that. There's a parent who's thinking that he's in his twisted mind doing the right thing by keeping his son in this locked room because he's dangerous to others. That was horrific. I couldn't even watch the whole thing. Lynn says yes, but he had zero reason. What if he said, my son's been telling me that he's, seeing ghosts, that he thinks our house is haunted, that he's seeing plates fly across the room, that he's seeing the lights flicker. He must be crazy. He must be capable. I mean, God knows what he's capable of. I need to keep him away from people. I don't like, if you're going to see that side of it here with the Crumblery, with Mrs. Crumblery, you can't use it as a shield and a sword, right? So, right. So parents better find the perfect middle of the road parenting, says Aaron Hack. And that's scary. Because where does this become an intrusion on parental decisions, parental rights. I mean, I'd like to talk to all of these other parents at the school who let their kids go hunting on Wednesday mornings and say, do you keep your guns locked up? Do you wake up at 5 a.m. to hand your kid the gun, and then do you unlock the ammo and hand it to them? I don't know. I don't know. I don't come from a gun family. So I don't know. Yeah, Pink Lady says he's only going to serve 2 years. Talking about the Ferreter. Yeah. He told them what he was writing on that paper, that he was designing a video game. And the school believed him. So what do you think's going to happen at the dad's trial? I mean, at this point, if she's found guilty, I think he should just plead guilty and get it over with, because he's going to waste his time on a trial. I think we can predict the end of that. Sleesha, paranormal is not meaning someone is crazy. She said it was a joke, that they had a joke that the house was haunted because it was an old house. Roxy, good luck for all the parents out there now with their children. They're going to make an example out of her. More charges are going to come for any parents if their kid does something wrong. Yeah. What about kids that are underage, that are under 18, that are in gangs? What about then? Parents going to be held liable when there's, gang shootings, underage kids. This is what maybe they should be. And because a lot of people in the chat seem to think that they should be. Thank you, Trish. Nothing about birds came into this trial, right? I did watch the trial, yes, and I watched half the Miller hearing, and I decided that I could not actually finish it, because then I started confusing it with what actually happened in the case, and I could not unsee it. And I don't recommend anyone watch it. I don't recommend it. But yeah. Hi, Nicholas. Boy in the box got into trouble in the school on a regular basis. See? Right? So the dad thought he was doing the right thing by keeping the kid away from other people, because he potentially may have been foreseeable that kid could have been a mass murderer. But was it foreseeable that Ethan was? I can't get there, you guys. I just can't get there. Yeah, and this will be interesting. So it'll be interesting to see if sentencing for 4 involuntary manslaughter convictions is imposed by the judge concurrently or consecutively. Concurrent, she'll be out before she's 60. Consecutive, it's life. The guidelines say up to 15 years. The judge does have some leeway. So we're going to see. Goofy Girl, do we need a law saying you can't give a gun to your minor child? Oh, wait, there is a law that says you can't give a gun to your minor child. No, actually, there's not. Not in Michigan. Then why are high school students allowed to go hunting before school? They're all under 18. They can't register it in their names. They can't buy a gun, but they're allowed to use your gun. Right? So that's not exactly true. You can't go into a store and buy one, but you can use one. Because if you can't, why is it that kids are hunting before school? Let's take a look at what some of the talking heads had to say, because a lot of them seem to... I'm not defending the parents, Margaret. I'm not defending the parents. What I'm saying is this is a precedent that will now be followed in other jurisdictions and in other states, and it's just not going to happen with guns, and it's just not going to happen with mass shootings like this. It's just not. The prosecution had to prove that the gun was not locked up. They did not prove that. They just didn't. It was in the jury instructions. Looking at the evidence. That's all I'm doing. I can't judge anyone else's parenting, but you know who did? The jury did. Watch Dr. Grande. Dr. Grande did a great video on this last night. Don't watch it now, watch it later. You know who else did a great video on this? Bruce Rivers. Hey Rod, I want the right to send my children to school and expect them to come back home. Why is everyone worrying about the parents being charged for providing a gun to a child? I agree with you 100%. I think it's devastating that my children are in school doing shooter drills and having to hide under their desk and doing lockdown drills, and I find it horrifying. But if everyone in that school, or a large majority of the children in that school, go hunting before school, then a lot of them have access to guns, and maybe there should be some tighter security at the school as well. Maybe that's also part of the problem. I mean, they had their hands on his backpack. They had it in their hands. They had the drawing. They had the email from the teacher the day before who said that he was looking at bullets in class. They had reasonable cause. They had a lot of other information that was admitted at trial that they did not tell the parents about, some things that he wrote about in his autobiography. I don't think any kid should have access to a gun. Maybe I don't think anybody should own a gun if they have kids in their house. That's not my decision to make for other people. We have a constitution for a reason. And under our constitution, people have the right to own guns. People have the right to own as many guns as they want, by the way, which I learned when they found 297 guns in the basement of the accused Long Island serial killer's case. When I made a joke about how many guns does a person need, I got killed in the comments by NRA people who say, lady, we're allowed to have as many guns as we want. That's our constitution. So I'm not going to trample over someone else's constitutional rights to own guns, but I do not think the prosecution proved their case. This case wasn't about whether or not the mom got him help. It wasn't about that. It was whether or not they locked up that gun. I'm just saying. Again, and this goes to the parenting. Who locks their kids out of the house over missing assignments? What does that have to do with this case? Nothing, but it came into evidence and you're thinking about it. Why didn't Jennifer check his backpack at home for the missing assignments? If she had, she would have seen that horrible journal. Would she have read it? Do you read your kids' journals? Do you read your kids' text messages? Are we going to put that burden on every single parent to go through their kids' Google search history? And how often should you do it? Every single day? 3 times a day? Once a week? Once a month? Should we all now be required to read our kids' journals? Should we all be required to go through our kids' phones and read their text messages? How often? 3 times a day? Once a day? Every day? Once a month? Once every 6 months? Once a year? That sounds to me like you don't like the way her parenting is. That has nothing to do with having access to the gun. And that's what this case was about. It's not about her being a crappy parent. And that's what everyone is talking about here, because that was the only thing they proved in their case, that she was a crappy parent. She was a mother who spent money on horseback riding. She was a mother who maybe didn't pay as much attention to her kid as she should have. She was a mother who resented her kid because he was an oopsie baby. She was a mother who should have given her kid a hug in the police station. She was a mother who should have gotten her kid committed, apparently, to a mental institution. But again, like I say, how could it be? Couldn't it be possible that he would have actually done this anyway? Anyway. Hi, Celicia. She didn't resent her kid. No, but they tried to make it look like she did. There's a lot of references to the oopsie baby thing, that he wasn't planned. And they tried to make them, they tried to put that in the jury's head, like, oh, well, she didn't pay attention to him because, he wasn't even planned and he was an accident and she made him know it. And, if she just gave him a hug in the police station, then we would like her better. She didn't buy the gun. She didn't buy the gun. She had an affair. So did her husband. She found people on Adult Friend Finder. Dandelion, as the prosecution apparently did prove the case. She was found guilty. Let's not persecute the jury's decision. If you believe in the Constitution, then trust the process. Okay, but that's what the show is about. We're here to discuss it. We're here to discuss it. If you don't like what I have to say, you don't have to watch it. Christina, she was a mother that had her own issues and couldn't deal with a kid that had even worse ones. Bad combo. Yep. Julie, not if you didn't have a gun. The gun was in the house. She says the gun was locked. She says the ammo was hidden. I don't own guns, you guys. I don't know. But those of you who own guns, I hope you lock them up. And if they're locked up and your kid knows the combination and he gets into it, there were 2 other guns in the house before they bought that gun. Yeah, maybe she's a narcissist, bachelor, junior. She might be a narcissist. Does that make her a criminal? I know a lot of narcissists. Julio, she was the breadwinner. She had to be at work, and they made that a negative thing, that she was the one earning the money in the family. Yep. They did. I just think that they tried to make her unlikable. I don't think that she made the greatest witness. So, maybe she was unlikable, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know, but let's see what the other talking heads say. And a couple of them agree with you. So hang on, let's get there. I do think that her saying that she did anything differently probably killed her, probably made them not like her even more, probably sunk her ship. But a lot of you wanted to talk about this tonight, so here we are. You don't need to kill me in the comments. Let's see what Dan Abrams' guests had to say earlier this evening.
You had talked to us before about what you thought should happen. Are you surprised by the verdict?
No, because I don't have faith in jurors, and I say that with love. I believe that they're doing the best they can at their level of awareness. I'm not going to second guess them. They were in the courtroom. I wasn't. All the things that, I can say to respect their verdict. That said, I saw the evidence. I saw her testimony. I think that there is a unbelievable power that prosecutors have when they bring charges. And jurors, they don't believe in the presumption of innocence. They don't. They should, but they don't. They think if the charges are brought, they must be right. And I think while she wasn't the ideal parent, she definitely wasn't the ideal wife admitting to affairs. She definitely did not reasonably foresee that her son was going to do this abhorrent act, and it falls way short of what's required under the criminal statute.
Imran, you were not surprised.
No, not at all, because you looked at the evidence that was presented by the prosecutors in this case and the way the verdict form and the charges were presented to that jury. I think that at the close of the case, the prosecutors were able to check off all the boxes there for that jury. You look at the charges, you look at gross negligence, failure to perform a legal duty, look at the evidence that they presented. I think that the prosecution were able to, and now we know from that verdict, prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I wasn't surprised, Dan.
Let me play. This is Jennifer Crumbleigh. I think this may have been the most important back and forth by her. This is from her own attorney when she was on the witness stand. This is number 10.
Do you believe that you knew or had reason to know your son was a danger to anyone else?
No. As a parent, you spend your whole life trying to protect your child from other dangers. You never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else. I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have.
If you could change what happened, would you?
Oh, absolutely. I wish he would have killed us instead.
Mark, do you think it was a mistake for her to have said, I wouldn't have done anything differently?
Of course, that's horrible. It's why 99% of my clients never see a witness stand, no matter how articulate they are. And she's no Martin Luther King. I never would have put her on there. She made the best remark, I wish they had killed me, he had killed me, and the worst remark in one line, I would have done anything differently. What are you, stupid? Your life's on the line. Yes, I wish I had done things differently. I wish I had been able to foresee what was going on inside of his head. But I believed he was doing wonderfully, especially because he texted me right before the shooting, I love you, Mom. Everything seemed to be okay at that moment, and the school never sent him home. The school thought he was okay to be at that school at that moment. They never caused him to go home. That's on them.
And Imran, I think one of the most incriminating pieces is the text messages between Ethan and a friend of his in April of 2021. He says, this is number 12.
Incriminating to who, though? They're incriminating to Ethan. These text messages are not incriminating to the mom. She never saw them. There's so much stuff that should not have come in. But again, I'm not the judge in this case.
Like, I hear people talking to me and see someone in the distance. I actually asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday, but he gave me some pills and told me to suck it up. Like, it's at the point I'm asking to go to the doctor. My mom laughed when I told her, but I'm having bad insomnia and paranoia and I need help. And I was thinking about calling 911 so I go to the hospital, but then my parents would be really pissed. I mean, look, she denies that, but the fact that he's saying this at the time, I've got to believe this was one of the most important pieces of evidence.
I mean, it speaks volumes because you're thinking about the charge, right? A failure to act, gross negligence. This is someone who's crying out to his parents for help.
He's crying out. He's telling his friend this. And just because he's telling this friend this does not mean that it actually happened. When these texts are offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted that he did tell his parents these things, they should not be admitted into evidence. It is highly prejudicial. And if he's a psychopathic killer, he certainly could be a liar. So just because he told his friend that he said that to his parents doesn't mean that it actually happened.
We see the evidence when you put it all together, the text messages, her Facebook posts, the interaction with the school when they call her the morning of the shooting. She doesn't take him out of school. You put those all together, and the prosecutors did that, and I think they did so effectively. And you see this picture, this narrative out there for the jury of a child who is screaming out for help, potentially, from his parents, but a mother, a father, who didn't necessarily pay attention to that, who disregarded his pleas for help. And ultimately, that's why you see with this verdict, she is being convicted essentially for pulling that trigger.
So if you were the prosecutor, you would have brought these charges?
I'm a former prosecutor, Dan, and looking at the egregious nature of what we saw presented at this trial, of course, James CRUMBLEY, the allegations are still there. He's going to face his own trial. I would bring these trials. I would have brought these charges, Dan. I would have presented this to a grand jury. I would have sought an indictment. I would have brought it to trial. And I think it's going to be indicative, Dan, the way you see various prosecutorial agencies handling mass shootings.
Mark, I know you would not have brought the case, but let me ask you, what happens now with the husband's trial? He'll at least have the advantage of having seen everything that happened in this case, right?
Yeah, okay, that's a plus. But that guy, he's got more blood on his hands if you're this jury. He's the one who was supposed to have secured the weapon. The wife testified, I thought very credibly, that that wasn't her thing. He was responsible for ensuring that it wouldn't get into the hands of their son unless it was used solely for target practice, which was its intended purpose. Every parent with a child who's a teenager, beware. None of us really know what's going on inside their heads, although you think you do. With a verdict like this, you better know what's going on because you could be held responsible for anything that they do.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find new
Okay, thank you, Scott McGinnis. The angry mob with torches and pitchfork crew loves this guilty, and I get the anger. 14's gone, and it's horrific. It's horrific. But I see a bigger picture than that, what this ruling does to our liberties as Americans ahead. Yeah. And I don't think they proved their case. Does that mean that I think that children should have access to guns? No. No, I don't think that at all. I don't think they proved their case. Somebody said, I'm so disturbed by the chat here because people are not understanding the mental health crisis. Oh, I understand the mental health crisis. I have 3 teenage girls who were locked down for 2 years during COVID. Do you know how hard it was to get any mental health counseling for any teenager from March of 2020 for at least 2 years? You couldn't even get an appointment. You couldn't go to an emergency room. You couldn't go anywhere. So I still don't understand what the evidence was. But, you know, apparently I'm in the minority, especially tonight. Let's just see, because I had some other things pulled up here. Let's take a look at a former judge from the area of Detroit. Let's see what he's got to say about this.
Joining us now is former Wayne County Circuit Court Chief Judge Timothy Kinney. Judge Kinney, thank you so much for joining us today. You just heard guilty on all 4 counts. Just give us your reaction. I don't know if you've been following this case very closely, but people have said back and forth, maybe she would be found guilty, maybe she wouldn't, but this certainly sets a precedent for any parent out there listening. And if their kid is in trouble, whether they have mental health issues or not, you have to pay attention. What are your thoughts?
Well, certainly it is an unprecedented case and charges that have been brought in this particular case. And for those of us who are parents and have raised children through those challenging teenage years, we recognize that there are things that our teenage kids don't always share with us and can be concerning. But I think in this particular case, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this case, I think, was driven in great respect with the fact specifics of the background. And particularly, I think what was compelling was the way that Jennifer CRUMBLEY handled that school meeting the day of the shooting. I mean, with all of this concern about the mental health issues and his having a gun and the drawing, to then have an 11 or 12-minute meeting with school officials and then say, I've got to go back to work, I think is pretty strong evidence to indicate that it's reflective that Jennifer CRUMBLEY blew through a lot of red lights that she should have been aware of.
And to think that she is,
your son.
and to think that they are the ones who purchased the gun for their son. She was at the shooting range with her son. From all accounts, this young man was crying out for help, and he just didn't.
She was at the shooting range with her son. So are a lot of parents in Michigan, right? It's not illegal. I mean, she's a bad mother if she doesn't spend time with him, but she's also a bad mother if she takes him to the driving range. We're golfers in my house. We go to the driving range, not the shooting range. So she's a bad mother if she takes him to the shooting range, and she's a bad mother if she doesn't spend time with him. So basically, she just can't win.
Get the help that he needed, as we saw in court.
Yes, and I think, and circling back to one of the comments that was made earlier before the verdict, when you were interviewing Todd Flood, the notion of the value of the defendant testifying, was she going to help her case or not? from my perspective as a former judge, I would say, first of all, juries don't like it when someone, either the victim or the defendant, gets on the stand and lies and presents a story that is not very believable. And I think to characterize herself as a hypervigilant parent, the surrounding evidence and facts belied that, I think. And I think that that does not help her any in terms of trying to raise the issue of reasonable doubt when you portray yourself in a way that is simply untrue, and the jury sees through that.
Judge, do you have any sense of what this sentence will look like for Jennifer Crumbley? How many years she could get? I mean, we know the maximum, but we also know there's been sentencing reform. So can you give us some insight on that?
Sure. Well, there will be, sentencing guidelines that will be prepared with regards to not only this particular offense, but also Jennifer Crumbley's background. But I think just as this is an unprecedented trial, the sentencing is going to present unprecedented issues as well. And there will be an opportunity once again for the families of the 4 victims to make impact statements. And, the reality is, I mean, you have these young lives that have been tragically lost, and multiple lives murdered. That's going to have an impact, I would think. But I would have every confidence that the judge will be mindful of all of the standards that are set forward here. But I mean, I would think that certainly a prison sentence is inevitable.
Well, Judge Kinney, we certainly appreciate your time, sir, and giving us insight, because like we've said over and over again, the eyes of the nation are watching this case. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, oh my goodness, that could be me. But thank you so much for your insight. We're going to go back to the court.
Oh my goodness, that could be me. That could be you. That could
Well,
be
joining
any
us
one
now
of us, you
is
guys.
former.
Could be any one of us.
Joining us now is former Wayne County.
That's what I'm saying. Where does that stop? Somebody said here the jury forewoman said something after the trial. I thought there was a gag order that nobody was allowed to talk to the media after this trial until after the husband's case is tried or the dad's case is tried. Is that somewhere I can find that? Hi, Leah Baker. Thank you so much for your super chat. We are confusing the outrage and beyond exhausting fear of gun violence with trying to find accountability. The evidence is shaky. Sandy Hook shooter evidence showed many knew prior. Yeah. I agree. And that's where I'm having trouble. There's no gag order. My understanding was that there was a gag order. Is it just on the attorneys, not on the jurors? Yeah, I can't play someone else's stream. Maybe it was on, if you can tell me if it was on a network, we can watch it there. Let's go back to, here's a couple of more talking heads in Detroit. Let's check this out.
Joining me tonight are defense attorney John Marco from Marco Law, as well as Lillian Diallo, vice president of the Wayne County Criminal Defense Bar. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
So, John, I've spoken with you a couple times already today. I want to get your reaction, Lillian, because you've been with us throughout much of this trial, and you had some strong reactions, feelings like anybody. How about today when you first heard that verdict?
It's still sad, right? Because you don't get what you want back. It's the life of your children that were slaughtered, right? I don't feel mass incarceration is the solution for everything, right? But in this particular case, but for you going in that meeting and not taking him with you or saying, hey, he has access to a gun, she wouldn't be sitting there. She would not have been convicted but for the negligence of her actions on that one day. And we have to stop having.
Negligence is a criminal standard. I mean, a civil standard. Negligence is a civil standard. I submit that to you. Negligence. There is a civil suit pending against the parents, the school district, everybody who could be responsible for this. They could be awarded millions and millions of dollars, and they should be. There are a lot of negligent parents out there. That's where these jury instructions were a little fakakta for me. That's what we say in New York. It's a little fakakta. Talked a little too much about ordinary care. That is the standard of care in a civil case. And but for it's not the standard. If she took him out of school that day, if she got him an emergency doctor's appointment, would he have not gone and done this a different day? If you read that journal and you read about it or you heard about it in the Miller hearings, this kid was going to do this event. He was going to do this act no matter what. Come hell or high water, he would have found a way. He would have found a way.
Outside conversations and talk to each other so that everybody can come together to keep us safe, to make us more fruitful. And parents, this is not something where you should jump off of a building. This was a very particular set of circumstances. Every parent is responsible for their children, period. Not all acts, right? But if you give them a gun and you know there's some issues going on, that.
Not all acts? You mean like just murder? Who would ever foresee that their child would commit murder? Who would foresee it? Ted Bundy's parents, when he was 15, do you think that they could have foreseen that he would turn out to be a prolific serial killer? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
That wasn't his, the mom's gun or the dad's gun. It was his gun. So they had a little bit more of an opportunity to stop this. I feel bad for her though too, because she's still a human being. I have more humanity for her than she had for everybody else when she said she wouldn't change a thing. We're going to keep our humanity.
John, the juries took about 11 hours to deliberate. This had to be a tough conversation for those jurors to be having, all of the evidence they had to go through. Do you think there was one thing that they might have really focused on, that one thing that really kind of sealed the deal for them?
You know, it's hard to say, and we might hear from the jurors in this case as more information comes out. But it certainly was a lot of things that I think went into this. There's no doubt it was a complete tragedy on all ends of this. So many people have been hurt. So many people are still hurting from this. You know, I think that putting her on the stand was probably a mistake, especially given how she testified in this case, a lack of remorse, a lack of accountability. And I think that that was strategically probably a bad decision. Also, there was unanswered questions for the jury, as you could see from the jury questions that came out. And we heard from one juror that they were focused on who had the gun last.
Right.
And that question was not answered to the satisfaction of them. As far as the evidence that came in, it was Miss CRUMBLEY, and therefore she was held responsible.
When you talk about that strategy, Lillian, you've used the phrase forced errors a lot. There were some interesting moments in this trial where evidence and witnesses that we had been under the impression would be entirely excluded from the case. In fact, the judge ordered as much, then kind of suddenly and almost seemingly randomly brought back in. What do you think about just the moves by the defense attorney and the prosecution?
Well, let me just say this, Madam Defense Attorney, you did the best you could, right? You did the best you could. The forced errors, I didn't understand, but maybe that was part of her strategy. She should go on to the next thing in the next moment in her life and not let this define her. The prosecution proved their case. That happens sometimes, right? Well, sometimes, right? Yeah. They proved their case. They had their presentation, and Madam Defense Attorney did however she did and whatever she did. I can't knock her now because I know how she's feeling at this particular time. It's not a good feeling for her, right?
Yeah.
She did the best she could.
And I guess in her defense, John, this had to be a difficult case to argue. Was it kind of just an uphill battle from the get?
It was, of course, this was a extremely difficult case. This is an extremely difficult case for an attorney to take on. And trials are fluid, moving things. You can, Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Sure.
Right. And so you are trying to do everything all the time, tremendous amount of pressure, strategic decisions that from, your office and analyzing it under a microscope, you might be able to make. It's a whole different thing when you're in the trenches of a trial. And so I agree. It's hard to go into her mind, second guess. It's easy for people to Monday morning quarterback. But, we're going to have to see what happens with James CRUMBLEY's trial, which is going to be next.
Now, if you are James CRUMBLEY's attorney, what's going through your head right now?
Oh boy. Okay. Oh boy. This was certainly not a benefit for James CRUMBLEY. Had she been acquitted, it would have bolstered or at least given them some hope and some things. I'm not saying that there's no hope for James CRUMBLEY at all, but this is going to be an uphill battle for James CRUMBLEY. I think it's going to be a harder case.
With that said, is there kind of a luck of the draw when it comes to juries? Do we ever really know? I mean, that's going to be a completely separate jury. Can you ever really predict how they might decide?
You do not know. And the one thing about James CRUMBLEY, I'm kind of on the fence about him right now after watching Mrs. CRUMBLEY's trial, because one more time, she was in charge. Clearly, she was in charge. She had to tell him, get up and cut the grass, get up out of bed, do this, do that to James. Right?
Oh, I love this part. I love this part. She was clearly in charge. She had to tell him to get up and cut the grass and go to work and get a job. She was clearly in charge. So she was definitely the more guilty person here. Again, it's the mom who's working 2 jobs to support the family. So she's definitely the one in charge here. This, I couldn't believe this when I heard it. I got to take it back a minute.
Fence about him right now after watching Mrs. CRUMBLEY's trial, because one more time, she was in charge. Clearly, she was in charge. She had to tell him, get up and cut the grass, get up out of bed, do this, do that to James, right?
So she was the planner. She was kind of in control of the law.
She was in control of this whole family, right? They sent that email with the gun, unredacted, to her, right? I don't know what he knew when he knew it. I just think the guy was trying to hold on the best he could in very difficult circumstances. So
what? She has sympathy for the dad? He was just trying to hold on? Dude, get a job. Get a job. Your wife is out there working 2 jobs, 10-hour Saturdays to support the family. You're driving DoorDash because you can't find a job. And she's feeling bad for him because they sent the mom the email because like she was in charge of everything. Wow. Am I overreacting to this? Maybe I'm overreacting to this. Maybe I'm overreacting.
To her, right? I don't know what he knew when he knew it. I just think the guy was trying to hold on the best he could in very difficult circumstances.
Just being supported by her.
Yeah, there was a gun. People give guns to children all the time.
He bought the gun. The gun was registered to him. He went to the gun store with the kid to buy the gun. But this lady wants to blame it on the mom because she's the one who's in charge, working 2 jobs, keeping the family together. And the dad's just trying to hang in there. Am I in the Twilight Zone?
Time to go out and shoot and all that other stuff, right? I don't know what we're going to do with James Crumbley, but I just feel a little bit more empathy with him because he was browbeaten. Like he was just beaten down, it seems like to me. You could see even when they were in the police car, he's unhandcuffed and she's handcuffed because he's the voice of reason. He's the one that tells his son, I love you, I love you, I love you. She was a little bit more harsh because she felt that was her role, I suppose. I don't know, but I kind of feel some kind of way about James Crumbley.
Well, of course, we will also be covering that trial, gavel to gavel the entire time. And again, that begins in March. We want to thank attorneys John Marco and Lillian Diallo for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. And stay with CBS News Detroit for ongoing.
Did I really just hear that? Did I just really hear her say that she's got a lot more sympathy for Dad because he was really just trying to hold it together? Can we at least agree on that? I mean, we may not agree on whether Jennifer Crumbley's case was proven by the prosecution. We may not agree on that. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in procedure. I believe in the rule of law. I also believe what that woman just said was a whole bunch of crap. Thank you, future. No, you're in 2024, Melanie. Godspeed to us all. To the mothers who do it all. Happy Father's Day to us. Melanie, you are 100% correct. I don't. He's going down too. And, oh yeah, blame the mom. That's an easy go-to. OMG. TK, you're not overreacting. That lady blames mom but says dad holds no blame, right? Oh, he was just trying to hold together. He was just trying to, not get a job. And the mom was in control, telling him what to do, browbeating him. She said he was browbeaten. She said you could just see from the video that he was browbeaten, that the mom was handcuffed and he wasn't because he was the voice of reason. Ooh. Oh, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Not every parent communication between each other occurs. Think about divorced parents. They weren't divorced, though. They were married. They were living in the same house. They were cheating on each other, but they were living in the same house. Mariko Junochi is not saying this yet. I am hearing it. Thank you, Deborah. Heaven forbid she took responsibility for paying the bills. Yep. I'm Melanie Schuyler. Great name. Wow. Sweet one, but she was working 2 jobs. Dad was doing DoorDash. Did she give the money for the gun? Where did he get the money for the gun if he was so useless? I don't know. Maybe they had joint credit cards. I don't know. Do you have to pay cash for a gun? I don't know. I don't know how that works. Never bought a gun. That, just me. Verdict made my head explode. Ambersino cursing versus seriously WTF. Pickleness. All right, look, or at least we're agreeing on something tonight, you guys. My cupcakes. What does she get? This BS. OMG. Mystery OMG, this lady been watching Bullhorn bed. We are in the Twilight Zone. Ms. Mojo Rising, we are all in this Twilight Zone. This is so wrong on so many different levels. Yeah, Calm Kitty too. This is the news media these days. OMG. And you guys aren't used to that because if you're like me, you watch a lot of YouTube and you're not watching. This is like that was like the local news station in Detroit that was covering this case. We have anybody in here from Michigan? What say you? What say you, my Michigan friends? Let's see. I think Cuomo had something to say about this, and I want to take a look and see what he had to say. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. Just talk amongst yourselves. I gotta find my playlist. It's like a whole big thing. I thought I saved it. We did not play this one. This is not Cuomo, but it's another News Nation clip, and they don't strike me when I play their stuff. So let's take a look and see what these people have to say. That one, I need something to detox me from the one that we just watched. Oh my goodness. All right, I guess we're going to see we're going to see the verdict if you haven't seen it. Here it is. Take a deep breath, everyone.
On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3, as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Jury found Jennifer CRUMBLEY guilty, as you heard, on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. In November of 2021, her son walked into his school, and killed 4 students: Hannah St. Julian, Tate Muir, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling, injured a number of others. Prosecutors argued Jennifer knew her son had serious mental health problems and gave him a gun anyway.
Of course, I look back after this all happened, and I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have. I didn't really believe like everything was happening the way it was. It was surreal.
Family law attorney Deborah Blum joins us now. Deborah, does this set a new precedent?
You know, that's a great question. First of all, this law is specific to the state of Michigan, where the prosecutors decided to move forward for the first time, a historic verdict where parents were charged in connection with the mass shooting carried out by their son. Other states could move forward and be influenced by this, but this case is not binding on states outside of Michigan.
Okay, so we think about that in the larger context, right, of all the things the mother sort of should have done or could have done. Not to say that anybody who buys their kid a gun is then responsible for the gun, but if your kid has mental health problems.
Okay, I think in song lyrics. So who can name that tune? Or anyway, name the artist. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
That may not be the best of ideas. This is her answering that question on the stand. Take a listen.
And you don't deny that you didn't tell the school officials, Mr. Hopkins and EJAC, about the gun purchase on the 26th?
No, we had stated that we went to the shooting range. I went to the shooting range with my son on Saturday.
You didn't tell them that you had gotten him that Christmas gift?
I didn't think it was relevant, no.
How high of a bar did prosecutors have to meet on this?
Well, I mean, it's clear that Jennifer shot herself in the foot, for lack of a better word, right? She omitted critical information in going to the school, failing to mention the fact that she armed her clearly mentally ill son. So the prosecutors did.
Okay, I don't like the way she said clearly mentally ill, because clearly the professionals at the school didn't say he was mentally ill. Christina, who diagnosed the kid with mental health issues? The answer is nobody.
Have a very high bar, and I think it's going to be appealed because there's no specific law on the book that says a parent can be charged for their acts of their child at this level, maybe in family court. But what we also know is that the prosecution, the judge instructed the jury that they had to find that Jennifer CRUMBLEY declined to fulfill her duty as a parent in Michigan and exercise reasonable care protecting other people from being hurt by her child. So she
Deborah,
took the stand.
How much of this was political? It's a unique law in Michigan. You've got a governor in Michigan who wants to be president one day. We know that gun issues in schools is a big issue for Democrats. Does it feel that way to you?
To me, it feels like tragically 4 beautiful teenagers lost their lives. And I think that this specific case, that mom took the stand, and, we could get to that political question, but she really did a terrible job in connecting with the jury. And there were so many extracurricular activities that she was doing with men outside of her marriage, etc.
Oh, Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's slut shame her. Let's slut shame her. I gotta take that back a second.
Really did a terrible job in connecting with the jury. And there were so many extracurricular activities that she was doing with men outside of her marriage, etc., that she should have been, the prosecutors made it clear, she should have been focused on the fact that her son was crying for help. And then the school, the morning of the shooting, asked her to remove her child from the school, and she refused to do it. And then they all agreed that within 48 hours, he'd have to get mental health help. I think that the school could be culpable to some.
Hold on. I just want to stop here because, you know, this case, this channel is always, always, always about the victims, and our prayers and our thoughts go out to these 4 young people whose lives were taken tragically way too early by a monster. Hannah St. Juliana, Tate Meir, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling. May they rest in peace, and our thoughts and prayers go out to their families, their friends, and to the family and friends and the other 7 people who were horribly injured by the acts of Ethan Crumbley.
Degree as well, because there were instances where the teachers had said that he was acting violently, and they kept allowing him to go to school.
Interesting.
Wait, he was acting violently? I thought he was just writing something that was a little disturbing in his autobiography. Does anybody know what they're talking about? Was he acting violently in school? And the school didn't tell his mom or dad?
Interesting. Fascinating case. All right, Deborah, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com.
Hey, hey, lovely Beth. Thank you so much for being so lovely. You sent a link to Detroit Free Press. I mean, I have their website up here. Is it on their YouTube, or is it the video that you're talking about on the website of the? I mean, I think I see a video here of one of the parents talking, but I don't see. Is it in the same video? Let me put this over here, and we will play that and see if it's in the same video.
Well, there's definitely a lot of feelings about everything, but I feel most of all that the cries have been heard, and I feel that this verdict is going to echo throughout every household in the country, and I feel it's necessary, and I'm happy with the verdict, even though it's still a sad situation to be in. It's got to stop. Everything that's going on, we have to address everything, and the root cause. Everybody involved. It's accountability, and this is what we've been asking for a long time now, and this is still just one step in the process. There's more to do, and we all have more to do. We all have work now. We all know that we are to be held responsible for anything that we do. So that being said, it's important to sit down and do some deep thinking and reflect on everything that we do every day. It's a milestone, and it feels like it.
Dave Burkett here, Radio Row Super Bowl.
Well, that was heartbreaking. Detroit Free Press jury 4-person. Jury per 4-person Detroit Free Press video into YouTube. All right, give me a sec. That was incredibly sad. The only thing that's coming up on YouTube is that same video that I just played. Let me just say something. Got it. All right. Got it. Got it. Thank you, my dear, for giving that to me. All right. Let's put this over here. You guys are the best. Now, if I only had a producer and a tech person, that'd be amazing. All right. Just hang on a second. Okay.
Us how it was deliberating.
It was very difficult. It wasn't an easy decision. Lives hung in the balance, and we took that very seriously.
And tell us, was it? Did you have to convince each other? Is there anything like that where it was going maybe?
I will say both sides were well represented.
Oh, okay. Tell me your name.
Nope.
You don't want to tell your name? That's fine. That's fine.
Confirm you were the forewoman, though? I was the forewoman.
Okay. Is there?
Was there something specific that really stuck that you guys were debating over for that many hours? The thing that really hammered it home is that she was the last adult with the gun. And that's where I'll end my comment. Thank you.
So if you had heard from Ethan, would that have changed anything? Thank you.
As she walked away, they asked her, if you had heard from Ethan, would that have changed anything? And she just kept walking. So she said it was because mom was the last person with the gun. She was the jury foreperson. And that'd be that. Maybe we should watch that again. Should we watch that again? Hold on a second. Let's watch it again, because I want to know if she's referring to just her own opinion or if she's referring to what the entire jury decided.
So tell us how it was deliberating.
It was very difficult. It wasn't an easy decision. Lives hung in the balance, and we took that very seriously.
And tell us, was it? Did you have to convince each other? Is there anything like that where it was going maybe?
I will say both sides were well represented.
Oh, okay. Tell me your name.
Nope.
You don't want to tell your name? That's fine. That's fine.
Confirm you were the forewoman, though? I was the forewoman.
Okay. Is there?
Was there something specific that really stuck that you guys were debating over for that many hours? The thing that really hammered it home is that she was the last adult with the gun. And
so she says that both sides were represented, meaning the jury was maybe split. I think that's what she means, that there were some on one side of not guilty and some on the side of guilty. And then I think she's saying what really hammered it home, meaning the way they convinced the people to flip from not guilty to guilty, was that she, Jennifer Crumbley, was the last person to have hands on the gun.
That's where I'll end my comment. Thank you.
So if you had heard from Ethan, would that have changed anything? Thank you.
And that's it. Just short and sweet. And I think that was, they're not required. Jurors are not required to talk to anybody. So that was, she chose to do what she chose to do. Oh, thank you so much, Nicholas, for your super chat. For the people who believe they should have held him home supervised 24/7, that didn't work for the boy in the box, father. Oh, yeah, I said that. And I didn't even see your super chat. So we were thinking about the same thing. Thank you, Nicholas, so much. I did see you had some stuff on Twitter this morning, so I kind of knew that we were on the same side of they didn't prove their case, but we are in the minority, it seems. Julie, thank you so much for your super chat. We had 37 guns in our house because it's a big part of Midwest culture. My BFF's daughter got her first deer at age 8 or 9. Yeah. Miss Mojo Risen, thank you for your super chat. Under 18 competitions with sport. Yes, they have under 18 competitions, right? Shooting, yeah. Hi, Robbie from Australia. We've missed you. It's been a while. How are you? Hello to you. Thank you for your super chat. It's a good time, right? Because down under, it's tomorrow. I guess you're mostly sleeping. Go on. Lifelong learner, $4.99. Everybody could be called a horrible parent by someone else's standards. Thank you so much for your super chat. And that's right. And that's why I think I'm having such a hard time with this. Because when we start judging other people's parenting, and that's what the jury did, in my opinion. Julie, oh, thanks for your super chat. Guns are not the problem. We have always had guns. It's a mental health problem. It is. It is. Tara, thank you so much for your super chat. DA Karen, if she had known, it would have been murder. Okay. If she had known that he was going to do this, if she had known that he had mental health issues, the charges would have been upgraded to murder instead of involuntary manslaughter. I think one of the detectives said that on the stand also, right? Thanks, Tara, again, for your super chat. She has to wake him up to get a job and cut the grass, and he was incapable of doing that, but he was also supposed to take the gun out of her car. I don't know. I don't know who to believe. I don't know who to believe, but the jury has spoken. Oh, thanks, Trish, for your super chat. We found it. Google the Detroit Free Press for jury foreman speaking video. Thank you so much for your generous donation. Kellen, look, I'm an alum. Sco Buffs. See my CU sign? You can't really see it because it's not focused. Spent many years in Colorado. CU Boulder undergrad. DU Law. I love Colorado. Kellen, this law is coming to Colorado. A lot of mass shootings here, I know. The one that happened at that supermarket. The name escapes me. Was it a Safeway? I used to live right down the street from that supermarket. That was my supermarket. I could walk. The King Supers. Was it the King Supers in Table Mesa? I lived right down the street from that supermarket, literally. Horrible tragedies going on everywhere. Scott McGinnis, if son unalived 4 classmates with a knife, this would have never been brought to trial. No political gain in that prosecution. DA ain't running on knife control. I think you might be onto something. Tansy Barnett, my brother had his gun locked up and bullets locked in another place, and my nephew found everything and unalived himself. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for your family. That breaks my heart. If someone wants the items bad enough, one would find a way to get them. Yeah. Lynn says, this stream and chat makes me sad. There's so much ignorance about mental health. I'm always talking about mental health and how I think there's not enough help for it. I think it's difficult to get help for it. And I think it's a huge problem. But when we're going to guess about what a mother should have known, I'm not saying that I don't believe that there's a huge mental health crisis. And I think we can all agree that there is. I just can't connect the dots to putting a woman in prison for up to 60 years for what she should or should not have known. I don't know. I just couldn't get there based on the evidence that they showed me at the trial, but I wasn't on the jury. Roseanne, she did a better job than many others. Who are we to judge? She'll be going to the same prison as Shonda Vander Ark, the only female prison in Michigan. Now that's a comparison in motherhood. Yep. Uh, those of you, I could not even cover the Shonda Vander Ark trial. I wanted to, I couldn't. I was so broken up and horrified by every single thing, every single bit of evidence in that trial. That woman is a monster. And she worked in the courthouse where she was tried. And she got on the stand. Oh my God. Charmaine Lily. So one appointment that day, which she would have never get anyway, when it's really just a meet and greet, your therapist would have prevented this. I don't think so. Janelle, there's a huge shortage of mental health providers nationwide. It's not as simple as just as get in the same day. I know. And I think a lot of people felt that way, that if she had just taken him to the doctor that day, she wouldn't be convicted. And I don't know if I can get there, being honest. Hi, Tiff. There are so many worse parents than this. That's the frightening part. Yep. Roseanne, the court of public opinion sucks. Kansas City isn't even an official case, and the renter is getting slammed. Total rush to judgment on everything. Yep. Ray Boyd, yes, it will have impact if she gets the same or more than Daybell or Frankie or Vander Ark or Montgomery or Boy in the Box or any number of others who tortured and starved and killed. It will be outrageous. Yep. Boy in the Box dad got 5 years, I think. He's not going to be away for very long. I mean, I hope that this will cause people to lock up their guns that have kids in their house. And I quite frankly think they should anyway, but she also did testify that it was locked up and the ammo was kept hidden in a different place. So if she did do that, then why is she convicted? I don't know. The jury decided the facts, and that's what they decided, that she must have been lying. JB, I don't understand why people think it's so easy to find the right mental health help and to get a teenage boy to agree to go. Yep. Auntie Shamantha says you're responsible for whatever your gun is used for. Sorry, got to secure them. It's popular opinion. Shaquille Oatmeal, like that. She was holding the house down while a grown man is flip-flopping, not having a clue, probably why she was cheating on his butt. She had no respect for her husband. He was a bum. Yeah, and she probably was a crappy wife and maybe a crappy mother, but does it make her responsible for something that her monster son did? Roseanne, let's just bash women for taking charge, paying bills, working, and having a life. She could be a good mom. Busy does not equal bad mom. Dad was at home. Did he step up with care of the child? Great question. Tiff Knox, maybe it will make people lock up their guns. Who knows? Yeah. Hi, Ariel. Thank you for your super chat. Lack of evidence equals adverse inference for this jury. Yeah. Yeah, and they did come back. Their second jury question, I think, was, are we allowed to draw an inference from the fact that certain people were not called in to testify by the state? And I think they wanted to hear from Ethan, because Ethan could have told them whether or not the gun was locked up, how he got the gun. And he didn't testify. Yay, Rebecca became a member. Yay, Nurse Jones became a member. Yay, thank you. Ariel, thank you again for your super chat. The dean was the last adult with the gun, actually. That's a great point. Thank you, Tara, again for your super chat. You're coming in hot tonight. The standard was knowledge of. She said it in her rebuttal closing, as did the detective. It should have been dismissed right then because they couldn't show that she had knowledge of. The experts convinced her he was better off there. Yes, we saw that. Thank you again. Also, Michigan had no storage laws. Yep. There was no law that said you had to lock up your gun, whether you had a kid in your house or not. So that's why she wasn't brought up on any gun charges, but she was brought up on the involuntary manslaughter charges. Found guilty. And I believe her sentencing will be in April. Correct? Yeah, exactly, Trish. There was something about Ethan going to plead the fifth, so he wasn't allowed to be called in lieu of a mistrial. His testimony would have been worthless. What say you, my friends? What say you? I was going to keep it quick tonight, but it's an hour and a half because everyone had a lot to say. Tomorrow, I am going to do a trial prep episode on the Adam Montgomery case. I want to go over the probable cause affidavit. They are still in jury selection, correct? I saw somebody had a stream scheduled like Law and Crime or Court TV for 1 p.m. So are they finishing up jury selection in the morning and then starting openings in the afternoon? Does anybody know? Because I need to schedule my stream accordingly. That's why I didn't put it up yet. Hello, Junk Man. Are you more of a Fleetwood Mac or a fill in the blank band? I'm a Deadhead, man. See that dancing bear up there? Doot, doot. And also behind me is the Dave Matthews tour poster. So those are the two bands that I still follow around to this day. Dead & Company has just announced a residency at the Sphere in Vegas, so that should be fun. So that's where my musical tastes lie. Nurse Jones, if this school participated in late start day for students to go hunting, they must assume that any student could show up with a firearm. Why don't they have metal detectors? That's what I said. They must assume that every kid has access to a gun, correct? Hi, Melissa Smith. Thank you for your super chat. In Colorado, the Klebold and Harris families were hated at first. Columbine, yeah. But we quickly learned that they were good people and grieving too. It's important to be likable. James should get a change of venue. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, that is a bad parent out of Montgomery. Yes. Yes. Shannon loves Matthews and Fleetwood Mac. Oh, Beth's a Deadhead too. Yay. Why do you think I spent so much time in Colorado? I didn't want to leave. They were playing at Red Rocks all the time. And it was an easy drive to any place else they were playing. So the fact that I saw so much of this country was based on my following of the Grateful Dead. I thank them for that. Summer tour was a really fun time as a college student. It was a really fun time. Yes, Adam Montgomery starts tomorrow, but are they finished with jury selection or are they starting the trial in the afternoon? I looked at the court calendar. It has it on for 9 a.m., but there are also a lot of other conferences on in the morning. So I think perhaps maybe the openings are not starting until the afternoon. Have they finished picking the jury? You guys have all the info. So tell me. Oh, so many tours. I know, so many tours. I have all the posters. I have all the ticket stubs. I remember back before when you had to mail away. I remember the mail. I don't know if you're old enough to have done mail order tickets for the Grateful Dead, but it was all about like the decorating of the envelopes and sending in the envelopes, and you get your tickets back in the mail. And this was a time before dynamic pricing, when the price of a ticket was actually $9.50 or $10.50, and they didn't jack up the prices because you had to mail away for the tickets and you had to go get a money order. Remember, you had to send the money order in. Melissa Smith, they still talk about you on Pearl Street, legend. Oh yeah. How about the Dark Horse? Because that was my the Dark Horse is still there. I was just there recently, so I know it's still there. And I had to buy a hoodie from the Dark Horse because that was my stomping ground. Standing in line for concert tickets, says Bob. We used to, when I was a student at CU, we used to sleep outside the UMC building because there was a Ticketmaster, I guess, or whatever it was called, Ticketron maybe, for days. And we would sleep out for tickets, and such great memories. It was so much fun. Red Rocks was a great venue, and it was amazing. Miss Scarlet Hall Revolver, it's good that you're doing the Montgomery case. It's going to be a rough one and needs to be treated with sensitivity. I know you'll handle it well. Yes. I will not live stream the trial because I can't. I'm too busy to sit all day in front of the computer, although I would love nothing more than to do that with you. But I will recap it, and I want to go over the probable cause affidavit before the trial starts. So hopefully it's not finishing a jury in the AM. Okay, so I am going to schedule this probable cause affidavit. That's how I say it. And I'll be like, you can't really be a lawyer because you say affidavit. Well, that's just the way we say it in New York. That's the way we say it. I will schedule it for, I'm going to say they break for lunch probably until 2. I'm going to schedule it for 11 a.m. tomorrow. Come back. We'll do Adam Montgomery's probable cause affidavit. It's chilling. I'm going to trigger warn you now. It's a horrific case out of New Hampshire. I know what the ending is going to be, but it's going to be interesting to see how credible Kayla Montgomery is, because she's an admitted liar, drug addict, criminal, and she's the star witness. So it'll be interesting to see. The L-Train, the prosecution literally did a massive character assassination of this woman, and she was convicted like a witch hunt. I wonder how it would have gone if Dad was on trial first. Well, I don't know if you were here to see what that woman on the Detroit station said, but he was, browbeaten. She was in control. I go back and watch that if you haven't seen it later, because that was chilling. Also, I would highly recommend watching Dr. Grande did a show last night. He did a video on Jennifer Crumbley before the verdict. And Bruce Rivers also did a great video. I love both of them. And if anybody has, if anybody knows either of them personally, I'd love to have them on the show. They don't go live, so I really have no way to communicate with them. But I love both those guys. And I think Dr. Grande's voice is so soothing. And he's got some great opinions. So this is it. This is a precedent in our country now, Janine, for parents to be legally held accountable for almost anything their children may possibly do wrong. And like I said to you at the beginning, Adam is not the dad. No, Adam is the dad of Harmony Montgomery. Yes. That's a different case that we're talking about. That trial starts tomorrow out of New Hampshire. He is responsible for the killing of his 5-year-old daughter, Harmony. It's a tragic, horrible case. It's a no-body murder case. Her remains have never been found. And it's chilling and it's horrifying. And so many areas of the system failed little Harmony Montgomery. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying. Dr. Grande does have a great way. He's so dry. He's like his humor is very dry. So you don't really know when he's joking, but he's crazy. He's crazy good. Crazy good. Dr. G called into, Dr. G. No, that's different. Dr. G's the body language guy. I'm talking about Dr. Grande, who is different. He has a different channel. Bruce Rivers is the criminal lawyer who does, stop self-snitching. The system fails. Everyone says big deal 303. Oh, you're from Colorado? That's the area code. Big deal. Big deal Leo 303. Born in August and you live in Colorado. Look how much I know about you just from your screen name. Maybe I should have been a detective, huh? Dr. Grande does a great deadpan. He so does. I'm going to Miss Donna Marie, my queen of moderators, has been going through some health issues, and I would like to please have everyone pray for Miss Donna Marie. Send prayers, good vibes, your thoughts. She has asked me to tell you this. I am not breaching any sort of privacy or confidentiality with Miss Donna Marie, but please, prayers up for Miss Donna Marie and keep her in your thoughts and prayers while she goes through some health issues. She is the best. Miss Donna Marie is the best. And we miss her, but we will be here when she's able to come back. I'm live. I'm live. I'm live right now. I'm here. I'm here. Anybody watch the Grammys? Let's change the subject for a second. That was one of the best Grammys years that I've ever seen. I thought it was great. Some years I watch it because my girls don't ever want to miss it. They love the Grammys. That's their favorite show. Their favorite awards show, I guess, of the season. I like the Emmys, but they love the Grammys. And I thought there were so many great performances. Billy Joel came out and played a new song, and then he played at the end of the show, another song. And I thought, and not my thing, but I thought Miley Cyrus was amazing. There were so many great performances. U2 was on. Stevie Wonder. I thought it was great. Tracy Chapman and Joni Mitchell. Yep. All good. All good. All right, my friends, thank you to my moderators for hanging in there. I know it's late in New York. Thank you to everyone who is here. Please hit the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. We're like 250 subscribers away from 25,000, which is really, really so amazing, considering I only started this channel 6 months ago. And I love you all, and my replay viewers and my channel members, my little cupcakes. And, you know, let's just help the algorithm and get this out there. And we can agree to disagree. Let's just do it respectfully. And yeah, Billy Joel, New York represent. Love it. Love it. Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs. You know what I love? And I hate how people, here's the great thing about Taylor Swift dating a football player is that my girls want to watch football now. And I love that. I love that my girls want to watch football with me. So go Chiefs. Happy Super Bowl. I'm going to see you before then because we'll be back tomorrow at 11 to talk about Adam Montgomery, and we'll prep for the trial. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, be cool, be kind, be classy. It is not hard. It is so not hard. Good night, my friends.